all these losers tweeting negatively at me who hate me so deeply because they saw a part of a YouTube video once and it offended them to their core. They can't stop tweeting against me. And Megyn Kelly thinks I'm bad and she's never even spoken to me. All these people are slave-minded.
All right, so it looks like the Matrix is attacking Andrew Tate once again. This guy just can't catch a break. Like right when he thought things were about to turn around, the Matrix gets him again. And this time it's Ron DeSantis going after him. I guess he's an agent of the Matrix and Tate didn't know it. Like he thought going to Florida would be safe, but when he got there, DeSantis said he's not welcome there. And then the Attorney General announced a criminal investigation into the Tate brothers.
These guys have themselves publicly admitted to participating in what very much appears to be soliciting, trafficking, preying upon women around the world. Many of these victims coming forward, some of them minors, people can spin or defend however they want. But in Florida, this type of behavior is viewed as atrocious. We're not going to accept it.
And then Tate tried to spin this like they're only going after him for political reasons because DeSantis thought that Tate might endorse Byron Donalds for governor over his wife who's talked about running. But then after Tate said this, Byron Donalds came out and said he also doesn't think Tate should be in Florida, and he supports the Attorney General launching an investigation into the Tate brothers.
You support the Attorney General's actions here?
I do. I think those allegations have to be fully investigated. The key thing is we don't tolerate the trafficking of women.
Are Andrew and Tristan Tate welcome in Florida?
No, quite frankly, not.
Yeah, so pretty much everything here just backfired for the Tates. It's hilarious. Like, they're so happy to finally be able to leave Romania, and the first place they choose to go is Florida, but now they have another case to fight because of that. And they had to flee the state already, but while Tate was there, he managed to do some podcasts like PBD, Nelk, and Candace Owens, of course. You know, she always has to defend him the most since her husband's good friends with him. Like, she would do anything for Tate. I mean, she literally defended a convicted child molester to help Tate. So Tate went on her podcast and basically just had a meltdown and almost started crying.
And what have I done since I've arrived? I did Patrick Bet David and sat on my laptop. That's all I've done. I've done Patrick Bet David, I sat on my laptop and I had Taco Bell. And I've got a criminal investigation?
Yeah.
Where the it doesn't even make any sense. I'll be honest, Candace, if I was a slightly more sentimental man, part of me wants to cry. Because this is so ridiculous. This is so heartbreaking and so sad. For 4 solid years, every single day, I have protected my reputation for 4 solid years. And for the first time in 4 years, I finally had a genuine smile on my face. That private plane to Florida, I land to another preliminary investigation. Why?
Yeah.
Why? I haven't done anything to anybody. You want to find a criminal? There's plenty of them out there.
So he was going through it. And he kept flipping out about DeSantis. And at one point, he tried acting tough by being like, come get me. I have nothing to hide. I'm right here in Miami. I'm not leaving. But then right after this, of course, he fled Florida. And also while he's ranting about this, he's like, I'm not scared. Come take my phone. You think I have evidence on there? You really don't think I wipe my phone every night? Which is obviously an interesting thing to say if you're innocent and have nothing to hide. So this podcast was going really well for him.
Want to play these games? I'm right here in Miami. I'm right here in Miami. Come get me, arrest me, perp walk me, put me on the news, tell everyone I'm a human trafficker. You think I'm not versed? You think I'm not ready? I'm a Navy SEAL in this shit. Fucking come get me, raid my house, take my stuff. You think I sleep with a phone full of evidence? You think I don't wipe my phone every night? You think I'm dumb? Come get me, arrest me. Let's do this all over again. I've done it for 4 years in Romania. You think I'm scared of your state jail after an Eastern European gulag? I'm staying right here until the case is concluded. Because when I beat it here, then what they're going to say? I beat it in England, I beat it in Romania, and I beat it in Florida.
And he hasn't beaten any of those cases, and he just left Florida. So I guess he wasn't that confident. But it seems like Candace will go all out trying to defend Tate. I mean, she was really fired up during this podcast, obviously because her husband and Tate go way back. And if Tate really is a pedophile sex trafficker, then it's not really a great look for her husband. So she'll do anything to defend him. And she started going off on DeSantis, and she demanded for an investigation into him. She's like, I want DeSantis's phone. I want the Attorney General's phone. Like, she's just in charge of everything. It was so funny. And this was the one moment where Tate actually had some hope, and you could tell he was like, all right, that's what I'm talking about.
What should be happening right now is left and right pressure should be put on Ron DeSantis and this Attorney General to make a statement as to why that was done, under what grounds a preliminary investigation is done. I want to know, what is the legal route to getting Ron DeSantis text messages that day? I want to know who was texting Ron DeSantis. Is it a FOIA request? Who was emailing Ron DeSantis and texting him? I don't want your phone. I want his. Okay?
Yeah.
Your phone makes no sense to me. I want Ron DeSantis' phone. I want the Attorney General's phone. I want Utmeyer's phone. I want to know what donors texted you and told you to move, because you were moving for donors and money and corruption, no different than a George Soros DA was doing. And I don't care if it's left or right. Wrong is wrong.
You nailed it.
So that podcast was basically them just flipping out the whole time. And Tate's other appearances weren't much better. Like, he went on PBD's podcast and he kept yelling about how he gets more hate than Epstein, which Tate and his fans always bring up to try to defend him. They're always like, well, what about Epstein? Like, they defend Andrew's trafficking charges by bringing up one of the most notorious human traffickers ever. Like, if you ever have to resort to what about Epstein to defend yourself, it's not looking too good. And Tate acts like Epstein isn't one of the most talked about people. I mean, Rogan just had a huge episode with Ian Carroll, and they went deep into Epstein and his connections to Israel. And this is on one of the biggest media platforms in the world. So Epstein still gets a ton of attention. I mean, so many people on Twitter were sharing clips from that podcast. And, you know, obviously the episode's going to get tens of millions of views. And if you're interested, I'm going to be talking about that over on Patreon, that Ian Carroll episode. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, Tate claims people are using him to distract from Epstein. Like, people can't just focus on them both and dislike them both.
I get more hate than Epstein does. You know, this human trafficking crap.
Yeah.
They hate on me more with no convictions.
Yeah.
Not a single picture of a victim. Not a single girl on the news saying I hurt her. Zero. Yeah. I get more hate than Epstein.
Well, we've never heard this guy's voice. You're one of the leading voices in the world.
I wonder if it's because the people who were on his island own the media. Ever crossed your mind? Maybe it's interesting. Maybe the people who are on his list own the media, and they're like, no, we didn't do human trafficking. This guy did.
And even if that is what the media is doing, is he not doing the same exact thing right here? And I mean, he just uses all the same tactics while he's criticizing the media for those tactics. Then also one part, he brings up P. Diddy, you know, another sex trafficker to compare himself to. So this is an interesting strategy here to be like, I'm innocent, but there's so many similarities between my case and P. Diddy's. Like, at one point, he compared the release of that tape of Diddy beating his ex to the media campaign against him, because like Diddy, Tate also had a video resurface of him where he's beating his girl, who was only 15 at the time. So Tate starts going off about how he can relate to Diddy, which is a weird thing to admit.
Wait. I don't know Diddy. Never spoken to him. I'm not defending him, because what they're about to say is Andrew Tate, sex trafficker, defends sex trafficker. No, what I'm saying is they've decided to wreck him. I don't know his side of the story. He may be guilty. His side of the story might be, yeah, I did it, but so did this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. I'm only asking, why only him? Because I think that's a far more interesting story. I know how this works, so I saw it and called it. This came out of nowhere. This was stored somewhere in the Matrix archives. When they decided to take him down, first thing you do is slander him, just like they did to me. Before we were arrested, there was a media campaign trying its very best to paint us as bad people. Why did this appear now? Why has this been said now? Why are they putting it out today? What is their further intentions? Why him? Why not the others? Why are we not talking about Andrew Tate's charity, TatePledge.com, where he gives $25 million a year away? Why are we not talking about the dog shelters he runs in Romania? Why are we only talking about an old joke he made 10 years ago? Why? Nobody thinks why for any of this. And then they get played like a fool.
And I love that Tate just randomly threw that in there, that he's donated money to charity and opened a dog shelter. You know, apparently he thinks you're getting played like a fool if you don't question why people focus on his sex trafficking charges instead of him opening up a dog shelter. So when Epstein and P. Diddy got busted, if you didn't think, wait, why is the media focusing on sex trafficking and not their philanthropy, then you're getting played like a fool. I mean, if anybody did bring that up in their defense, that would just make them seem even more guilty. So Tate, him mentioning this is not a good look. You know, it's so obvious what he's trying to do. And his lawyer, he tried to do this on Timcast. And he's like, even if you think everything the Tates have done is true, they've still done much more good for the world than bad. Which is pretty crazy to be like, all right, even if you guys accept that they have trafficked minors, at least they've donated some of the money they made from trafficking them. So there's still a positive to society.
That him and Tristan do with Tate Pledge. They give millions and millions of dollars all the time to build wells, to give food. These are good men who have done a lot of good for the world, right? Even if you accept all the allegations against them is true, the amount of good that they've done for the world tremendously outweighs the bad, and people don't see it.
And I don't know how a lawyer doesn't realize how stupid this sounds. Like, if your client is accused of sex trafficking and you defend them by bringing up how they donate money to charity, I don't know if that really helps their case at all, because, I mean, Jimmy Savile, Jeffrey Epstein, P. Diddy, they all did a lot of charity work and made sure it was really public. And Ghislaine Maxwell, like after Epstein first got busted, she started donating money to a charity for sex trafficking victims. Like she thought it would cancel out what she was doing. So they just make it so obvious that they're trying to whitewash their crimes through charity work. So it seems like Tate kind of uses the same playbook as them. You know, also like Epstein, it sounds like he might have had a blackmail operation too. Like he once said the reason people want to be friends with him is the same reason people want to be friends with Epstein. And he said all his girls are spies and record every conversation. And he claims he could honey trap a president with his main girl if he wanted to. And that girl he admitted he met when she was 14 or 15 and he was in his mid-20s, and then he groomed her into sex work. And before Tate blew up on the internet and became famous, like when he was just known for being a pimp, he still had some high-profile friends like Candace Owens' husband, George Farmer.
I've known Andrew for many, many years. I've known Andrew since before Andrew was Andrew. You know what I mean? I've known Andrew since before he was famous, I guess. Andrew is a great guy. He really is, and he's a wonderful guy in many ways. Like all humans, he's flawed. Off camera, I think he'll be the first person to admit that. Like he's a flawed human being.
I created a system that allowed me to convince girls to do this, allowed me to retain 100% control of their income. I know how to make sure the girl can't run away.
I know Andrew pretty well, and like, you know, as I said, I know that he's full of flaws.
And I made a video last year about his connection to Tate and why Candace defends Tate so much. And I speculated that him and Tate probably used to party together. So if that's true, then Tate probably has some dirt on him or knows some shit about him that Candace probably doesn't even know. And him and Candace actually tried to address this theory, and it was just really awkward. Like Candace kept laughing about it and saying how ridiculous it is because she's only met Tate a handful of times, which doesn't really matter because the theory is that he has dirt on her husband, not her. And her husband said him and Tate go way back. And Candace has a picture of him in her home office. So it definitely seems like Tate is a close friend of her husband. And he barely says anything about it here. You know, they basically just try to joke about it and act like it's so insane. Like, who would even believe it? But it's funny because Candace is the one that thinks pornographers use sex workers to get blackmail on people so they can control them. So I just applied that theory to her husband and Tate. But now she's acting like, oh, it's so crazy. How could anybody think this? I mean, it just makes no sense. And also, I don't know if Candace is aware of this, but Tate's right-hand man, who is like the head of his war room, is a Zionist. So I'm sure if Candace's husband didn't know Tate and wasn't involved in this, then she would be all over this theory. You know, this is right up her alley. But since her husband's involved, obviously it's a different story. And hopefully she doesn't figure out that Tate has a Jewish handler because she'll just lose her mind.
This one that has emerged is definitely my favorite. That Andrew Tate has blackmail on you. It's just like,
Top G.
where did the top G's
got blackmail on
you?
me.
They're like, this is why. I'm like, what is anybody ever talking about? I can count. I literally think on 5 fingers how many times I've even met Andrew Tate. 2 of them were the times I was interviewing him. Once at the Trump Hotel. I think it's 4. I think the total number is 4. Yeah, it's crazy. And so they think that they've developed this whole thing where like he's known you your whole life and he knows where all the bodies are buried. I'm like, people on the internet are mad, but I love a good conspiracy theory, so I love to read them about myself, especially.
Like, he hasn't told me if he has.
If he does,
Maybe he does.
Andrew Tate, also, if you are watching and you have a blackmail file on us, please let us know, okay?
Exactly.
Don't let randos on the internet know about that.
Yeah, so she really cleared things up here and proved that theory wrong. I mean, honestly, at this point, it might be better for them if people think her husband is being blackmailed, because at least that would explain why she defends someone as depraved and degenerate as Tate, because this is obviously not a good look. And when she talks about Tate, it almost sounds like she knows he's guilty, but she thinks he should get a pass because so many other people do it. I mean, it's so weird when she talks about him, because she'll also talk about how we need to crack down on pornographers because they're all using sex traffic women. Which, if that's the case, then shouldn't this be a good thing that they're going after Tate? Like, he made most of his money from that. His brother said he's gotten more girls into sex work than anyone else. And they also taught a course on how to separate a girl from her friends and family and make them fall in love with you so then you can get them into sex work. And he probably taught this to tens of thousands of people. And the method he describes sounds a lot like the Loverboy method, which is a form of sex trafficking. So Andrew and Tristan Tate might have been teaching tens of thousands of people all over the world how to sex traffic women. So if Candace really did want people to crack down on this stuff, you would think she'd be happy that these guys might finally face some consequences. But of course not, you know, since her husband is friends with them. Instead, she'll defend them as much as she can.
Does anybody care about the hundreds of thousands of American children that are missing? No. The only human sex trafficking that matters is when it's Andrew and Tristan Tate. Have you ever seen any of the pornographers, the people that are making billions off of pornography, get arrested? Because we know for a fact that those websites are trafficking or are using trafficked women.
I have recruited, I think, although you've worked with a lot, more girls into, I guess, the adult entertainment industry than anyone else. I really have.
You ever seen them crack down on any of those pornographers? Why haven't they done that? So you want me to believe, you want me to essentially just, I guess, defy all of my sensibility for a moment and believe that it's Andrew and Tristan Tate.
On CobraTate.com, I have my PhD program, and that is PhD is a pimp and hose degree that I'm.
Clever.
And
Clever.
That teaches basically how I got girls, how I met girls, how I got girls to like me, how I got girls to fall in love with me to work on webcam for me. Because that's what I did. That was my MO, was find girls, make them love me, and make them work for me. And that's how I got rich. So that teaches everything I know from start to finish about not only getting girls, not only obtaining them, but retaining them.
Why does the media hate these two men so much when we know there are worse villains?
Yeah, and she pretty much admits there that they're villains, but there are worse villains out there. So that means she'll defend Tate, promote him, promote Hustlers University. I mean, she's just turning into a Tate shill. It's wild.
Actually, you're so right. Like, I wish I had not been a fool and taken out $100,000. I paid it back.
Yeah.
But I learned nothing. And I would have rather have spent the $49 on the Hustler University program so I could learn what skill set, here's what they're using. He literally said he learned editing skills that somebody else would have paid $150K to learn.
Yeah, we're doing very well. And
so it's $49. Tell me again how it works.
so it's $49 a month to get access to 18 modern wealth creation methods.
Like, who the hell would promote Hustlers University? Why would she be doing this? It's so embarrassing. But she's all in. I don't think she's ever going to stop helping the Tates, which is just funny. I mean, I love watching her do mental gymnastics trying to defend Andrew. Like, maybe she can find a way to shift the blame onto Tate's Jewish spiritual advisor, wizard person, Miles Sonkin, or Iggy Semmelweis he goes by. That guy's a character. Like, recently he did this really cringy podcast with another one of Tate's cronies, and it was so embarrassing. I talked about that over on Patreon. Make sure you check that out, along with over 120 other exclusive videos. I post a 20-minute video on there every week. That's where I'll be covering the Joe Rogan, Ian Carroll podcast. So make sure you check it out if you're interested. There's a link in the description.